Hello, welcome to today's UCE Math practice, and these are the questions for today. Feel free to pause and try the numbers before looking at the guide. Okay, we have 10 questions, and then that's the last question there. Question one, we are supposed to factorize this expression completely. Okay, and when you look at the expression, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 terms. And whenever we are factorizing and we have 4 terms, then our first step can be pairing. All right, so I can pair these 2 terms, and I can also pair these two terms. And factorization is all about looking for common terms. So let me look at these first 2 here. When I look at the first 2, what is common to this first part and this second part here? I see that I have some term x here, whereas I have x to the power 3. So what is common here and here is x. So I write it, and I open brackets. Then since I put x outside here, that means now here I'll need to write 4y squared. And clearly, when I multiply this by this, I should be able to go back to this. I have a subtraction sign. I put a subtraction sign. Now that I put x outside here, then the term that I need to put here is x squared. Okay, so that when I multiply this by this, I go back to x to power 3. Nice. Okay, now let us look at our other 2 terms. Now when I look at these 2 terms, I see that I have a minus sign here, okay, on the y, and then I have a positive sign here, and then I have a y. And so it becomes hard for me to tell whether the y that is common, I need to put a minus y or a positive y. But let us first of all write a y, since we have y here and y to power 3 here, so y is common. So I want to write y here. I open brackets. Then since I have y here, then the term that I should write here is x squared. So when I multiply it by this, I go back to this. Remember, we haven't put a sign here. Then I have this. I want first of all to dodge the sign. I only want to look at the term. So since I put y here, then so I also want to write this as 4y squared. Okay, so that when I multiply it by this, I go back to 4y cubed. Now I need to fix the sign. Okay, I need to fix the sign. Which sign should I put? When I look at my second bracket here, this bracket here, and I compare it with this, I see that I have 4y squared, I have 4y squared. I have minus x squared, I have x squared here. So that means, remember, we are dealing with factorization. So that means, since I'm factorizing, my strategy here should be to make sure that what I have in brackets is the same. Okay, so that means I need this to be minus x squared, and I need this to be positive 4y squared. All right, so now what should this y be? Since I have minus x squared, then this y should be a positive y, so that when I multiply it by this, I get minus y x squared, and when I multiply it by this, I get positive 4y cubed. Okay, have we seen that trick there? But please, we must have the sign there. Okay, now by doing this, I discover that this bracket here is the same as this bracket. Okay, so now that I'm factorizing and this is the same as that, okay, so that means when I write this again, I can say what I have in these 2 brackets is the same, 4y squared minus x squared. Please, I hope you're not worried about that these 2 are the same. When I have this, I can simply put this here, and then it becomes exactly this. Then since this is the same, what do I remain with? Here I have remained with x, and here I have a positive y. Okay, there we are. Now this one is a simplified bracket, but look at this bracket. I see that I have a 4, I have a y squared, I have a minus x squared. So these two terms have a 2 power 2, and I have a minus sign in between. And this 4 can also be written as a 2 to power 2, okay, y to power 2 minus x squared. Do you see that? I already have this here. Now when I look at this, the first term, I can as well make it even look clear. But instead of saying 2 squared, I want to write 2y bracket squared minus x squared, okay, into x plus y. So I have a number squared minus another number squared. Do you see that? And so whenever we are factorizing this, we call it a difference of two squares. One number squared take away another number squared. How do we factorize this difference of two squares? Okay, when we are factorizing a difference of two squares, we need to write two brackets with two different signs. Feel free to start with any sign you want. I want to start with a plus, I want to have a minus here, but you can also have minus plus. Okay, the first number is 2y, which is squared. The last number is x. So now I write without the squares because I'm factorizing this difference of two squares. The first number is 2y, the last number is x, and then I also have this part here. And so this is our final step. We have been able to factorize this. Okay, fine. Someone said that I have not liked the way you started this question here. There's another way of thinking about this. Please do not be limited to one way. If I do not want to think like the way I was able to form this bracket, I can as well look at this statement here. And I notice that I have the highest power on the unknown as a 3. You see, I have x to power 3, y to power 3. Then x squared, then y squared. When I observe this, I can also decide to put the same terms, same unknowns together, okay? So I rearrange this statement a little bit. How? I can write, so this is an alternative here. I can start with this first term, which says 4xy squared. Then I bring this positive 4y to power 3. So plus 4y to power 3, okay? Then I have minus x to power 3. And then I have my minus yx squared. I've only moved this term so that the y terms are together. And still, since I have 4 terms, I'll look at these first 2 terms and I look at the last 2 terms. So what is common to these first 2 terms? Okay, let me put my equal signs. I can say I have a 4, I have a 4 here, so 4 is common. I have y squared, y cubed. So since this one has a higher power, then what is common is the y with the lower power, which is y to power 2. Then I open brackets. What do I remain with here? X. Then what do I need to multiply by this to get 4y to power 3? I need to add a y. Okay, when we multiply this by this, we go to this. Now after that first part, let me continue to this next part. So I see I have a minus sign, a minus sign. So the minus sign is also common. I can write it down. Okay, then the common term, x here is to power 3, here is to power 2. So the one which is common is x to power 2. I open brackets. What should I put here? It should be x, so that when I multiply it by this, I go back to x to power 3. Then since I put here minus sign, now here you need to be careful, extra careful. Actually, that's the word, extra careful. Let me try to make this look better. Okay, it should be just an x. Okay, extra careful because I put a minus sign here. Then here I should put a plus sign, so that when I multiply minus times positive, I get minus. So it is plus what? It should be plus a y, okay? This y that is remaining here. All right. So now still at this step, you notice that what I have here is the same as this. And so I can write it down, x plus y, because it is common. This is a plus here, okay? Then when I open a new bracket, what should I put here? I have remained with 4y to the power 2, and here I have minus x squared. So now when you look at this step, you'll notice that's the same step as the one that we have here. So that's how you can also do this. Please make sure you also move up to when you get this final answer here. Okay, at least let us enjoy question 2 here. Question 1 has given us a hard time where we have an operation. We have this operation here, but it is defined in terms of a plus sign, a division sign, and a subtraction sign. So some unknown symbol, we don't know what it means, but it has been defined in the symbols that we know. We have this, and then so we start with the bracket. So 5 star 3, this being my A, I am simply following this being my B, should be the same as A, which is 5, plus B, which is a 3, out of 5 minus a 3. And this gives me 8 out of a 2, and my final answer is a 4. Okay? Then when we get a 4, so that means where we have 5 star 3, we are substituting there a 4, so that it becomes 4 star. Now the other part is minus 2. So the first term following the given definition is an A. The second term is a B. Following the given definition, where we have A, we are putting there 4, and then we have plus negative 2 out of 4 minus negative 2. Okay, and then this will give us this is the same as 4 minus 2. We have a 2 out of this to turn into a plus, so we get a 6, and that's our answer. We can simplify it. Into let me also make this look nice. Okay. Okay, so this is 2 out of 6, which can be simplified into 1 out of 3. Question 3. Solve the quadratic equation, and then this is our quadratic equation here. And allow me to solve this using just 2 methods. I'll use the factorization method, which requires us first of all to get the sum, and our sum from this equation is this number here, negative 3. Note that I'm also putting the sign there, and then our product, the product is given by the product of these 2 numbers here. And when you look at this number here, the number that we have here is negative 20. So when I multiply it by this, I have my product as negative 40. Is that okay? Okay. Remember, in a quadratic equation, this is A, this is B, and this is C. So the B gives us the sum, negative 3. The product, why we call it the product? Because we multiply the coefficient of x squared, A, times the constant here to get this. Okay, so when I do that, then the next thing to do is to get factors of 40. Okay, I can just write them down here. 1 times 40, 2 times 20. Do I have 3? No. 4 times 10, 5 times 8. Anything else? Okay, so which pair can give me a 3? When you look at the numbers, which pair can we adjust to give us a 3? You notice that it is this last pair here. Okay, we only now need to bring in signs, and since I have a negative sum, then that means my bigger number is the one which is going to be negative, so that when I say 5 plus negative 8, I get negative 3, and 5 times negative 8, I get negative 40. So when we get these two numbers, we expand this middle part here, all right? So we're going to write this as 2x squared. So instead of saying minus 3x, I will write there minus 8x plus 5x, okay? Note that when I add these two, I go back to minus 3x. Then I have this constant here, minus 20 is equal to 0, okay? Now we have 4 terms, so we are going to factorize, okay? So what is common to these 2 terms? To start with, we know that 2 is a factor of 8, so we can write a 2 here. Then we have x squared and x, we can write an x into, so what should I put here? This should be x, so that 2x times x, 2x squared, minus, which number can you multiply by this to get minus 8x? We need a 4. Is that okay? Now, the moment I get this bracket here, sure deal, it must be the same bracket here, okay? It must be the same bracket here, having got my pair correctly. So which number should I put here so that when I multiply by this I get 5x? I need a positive 5. And so you see positive 5 times this, positive 5x, positive 5 times negative 4, negative 20. It comes out as simple as that. Now this is becoming common, and so when we are factorizing, whenever something is common, we write it down and we open a new bracket. And what do we put there? This term here, 2x, and then this term here, plus 5 is equal to 0. Now that we are multiplying two numbers and we are getting 0, so that means either this number here is equal to 0, and so when we solve we end up with a 4. That is our first answer. Or this number here is equal to a 0, and so when we take 5 to the other side, 0 minus 5 divided by 2, x should equal to minus 5 out of 2. So this is our second answer, and that is our factorization method. But remember, we also said that we can use the formula where we say x should equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and everything is divided by 2a. And when you use this formula here, simply go ahead and substitute what b is, what a is, what c is, and then you solve. That is yours to enjoy. Okay, let's continue to question 4. Question 4. Question 4, we are being told to make Q the subject of this equation here, okay, of this equation here. And so when you want to make Q to be the subject of this equation here, then that means we need to have Q left on one side. When we look at this, we notice that we have two Q's. There is one up here and one down here. And so that means when we are working, we should bring them together. So how can I bring them together given that I have fractions on both sides of the equation? The first thing to do is to cross multiply. So I can cross multiply so that I write y into p plus 3q, okay, is equal to, the other side I have x into q minus 3p. After that, we can open brackets, yp plus 3yq is equal to xq minus 3xp. Okay, I multiply this by this, and then I also multiply it by that. Okay, opening brackets. Fine. Now after that, since we need terms with q to be put on one side, then allow me to have the q terms on the left hand side. So I want to bring this to this side, and now that this term has no q, I'll take it to the other side. Okay, so now I'll write 3yq, it is positive, then when this term crosses equal signs, it becomes minus xq is equal to, now this term here that has remained is minus 3xp, and at the same time when this term crosses equal signs, it becomes also minus yp. It is a look at how the signs are changing. Okay, term crosses becomes minus. This simply stayed here, so that's why I'm writing it as minus 3xp. Good. Now that we have the terms with the q on one side, then we can factorize. Okay, q is becoming common, so I can write q, I open brackets, I have 3y minus x. Do you see that? When I multiply this by this, I go back to this. When I multiply this by this, I go back to this, is equal to, I do not need to worry about this side because these terms can be there the way they are. What I was interested is to have the q here. And now that I have q here, now I can divide on both sides by this term, so that means I can write my answer as q is equal to minus 3xp minus yp out of 3y minus x. And I have been able to have q left on one side of the equation. Okay, so now when you look at my answer, at this step, for me, I moved my q on this side. Someone say, is it also possible that I can have q on this other side? Now, when you do that, your final answer will look a bit different, but we shall have the same answer, okay? Because it's a matter of multiplying here by, when I multiply this numerator by negative, this will turn into 3xp plus yp. Then out of, when I multiply this by negative, this one becomes minus, so I want to write it first. Then this one becomes negative. I want to write it like that. So this answer here is the same as this. So do not get worried. If this is what you have, then this is also very okay. Our question 5, we are supposed to work out the inverse of this given matrix. All right. Excuse me. And remember, when you want to find the inverse, then we need first of all to get the determinant of this matrix here. So what's the determinant? The product of these two numbers here along the major diagonal, take away the product of these two numbers here along the minor diagonal. And so when you multiply, we have this minus 3, okay? And when we add, because now this is turning into a plus, we have a 15. So that is our determinant. Now, after getting the determinant, to get the inverse of this matrix, now we need to have 1 out of the determinant times the adjoint matrix for this matrix here. And what's the adjoint? This number moves here up and this moves down. Do you see that interchange? Okay, and after doing that, then what happens to these two numbers along the minor diagonal? We change their sign. So since I have minus 1, I change it into positive 1, and down here I have a 3, I change it into minus 3. We see that this is what we call the adjoint of this matrix here. And now what is left is to simplify this. We can multiply this by each and every number inside here, so that we have now 6 out of 15. When we multiply this by this, 1 out of 15, minus 3 out of 15, and 2 out of 15. Okay, and that is our answer. But we can continue and simplify. We can continue and simplify a bit, where we're going to write this as 2 out of 5, then minus 1 out of 5, 1 out of 15, and 2 out of 15. So that can become our simplified answer. Okay, nice. Let's move to question 6. Question 6. Question 6 talks about a rectangular carpet. okay, rectangular carpet, if I may sketch it here, okay, something like this, is 5 meters. The length, okay, the length of a rectangular carpet is 5 meters more than its width. Okay, if its area is 24 meters squared, find the width of the carpet. So we are being told that if we have a certain width, let us call it W, then the length is 5 more. So that means we have W plus a 5, okay, 5 meters more than the width. I hope this illustration here makes sense. And from here, then given we know the area of this carpet, then we can make the use of that to create an equation where we are going to write and say width times length should give us the area, okay. And when we open brackets here, we have W squared plus 5W. When I notice that I have the unknown being squared, then I know I have created a quadratic equation. So I can move this to this side in my second step here. Minus 24 is equal to 0, so that I can clearly see the quadratic equation. Okay, so now that we have a quadratic equation, we need to solve it. What is our sum? Our sum is this number here, 5, and then our product. Now that this is 1, our product is a number right here, which is minus 24. And factors of 24, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, we have a 3 times 8, 4 times 6. I think we have them all now. Which pair can give us a 5? We have 3 and 8, this pair here. And since the number is a positive 5, that means now the smallest number is what we need to make negative. So that negative 3 plus 8, positive 5, negative 3 times 8, negative 24. Good. Now let us expand this, the middle term, and we're going to write now our statement as W squared, then minus 3W plus 8W minus 24 should equal to a 0. Remember this middle term, when we add it, we should go back to this. So what is common to these two? Now that we have 4 terms, I'll look at these first 2, and I also look at those last 2. I say I have W squared and W, it is common. I put it outside brackets. So I need a W times W to give me back this, and I need minus 3, so that when I multiply this by this, I go back to this. The moment we get this first bracket here, we are sure that it should be the same bracket here, right? Then what we only need to do is to put a number here, so that when you multiply it by this, we go back to this. And so that number is positive 8. And clearly when you multiply positive 8 times negative 3, we go back to minus 24 as well. So this is equal to 0. Now that this and this is becoming common, see, I write it down. I open a new bracket, W, which is this term here, plus this 8 here should give me a 0, meaning that W minus 3 should equal to a 0, and from here W is equal to a 3, or W plus 8 should equal to a 0, and here W is equal to minus 8. But now that we know that W is supposed to be width, there's no way the width can be a negative answer. So we need to say, therefore, the width is a 3. You can put meters, 3 meters. Please, when you solve such question, you need to give your final answer. Do not simply stop here. Okay, you need to show that you know that you are working out something that cannot be a negative. So continue and state that the answer must be the positive number. Fine. Question 7. We are supposed to solve this equation here. Okay. and we see it has some terms in the denominator. Whenever we have a question like this, the first thing to do is to obtain the LCM, so that we remove these denominators here. It is not easy to work out with fractions. So what's the LCM of 2, 4, 3, and 1? The LCM is a 12. Okay, so now when I get it, I'll multiply it by each and every term. So I'll need to say this times the first term, which is a half of x. Then I have a minus sign. Then I put a 12 times the second term, which is x plus 1 out of 4 is equal to 12 times a third of x plus 12 times 2. Please do not forget even this last part here. We are multiplying by each and every term. Okay? And when that is done, then we can simplify by 2, 1, by 2, 6, by 4, 1, by 4, 3, by 3, 1, by 3, 4, and then this is already a 1. Okay, so we can continue now. We can write this as 6x. Okay, we have minus 3 into x plus 1 is equal to 4x plus 24. Good. We need to open brackets here. 6x minus 3x. Again, minus 3 times positive 1, it gives me minus 3. You need to be careful there. Minus 3 times this, minus 3x. Minus 3 times positive 1, minus 3 is equal to 4x plus 24. Okay, when we simplify this, we have 3x. Okay, 3x. Let us bring this term to this side, so that becomes minus 4x is equal to, we have a 24 here. When we take this minus 3 term to this side, it becomes a positive 3. When we subtract here, we have minus x is equal to 27. So how do we make this to become positive? Divide on both sides by negative 1. So our final answer is negative 27. That is our question 7. Here we go. Question 8. Question 8, we are told that we have a box which contains red, white, and black balls. The probability of picking red is this, and that of picking a white ball is this. And we are supposed to find the probability of picking a black ball from the box. Okay, so now that we're interested in picking the probability of picking a black ball, remember the total probability of picking, or the total probability when we pick a ball from the box. Okay, their total probability, all of them should be a 1. Okay. But now that we know the probabilities of these other two, the red and then the white, that means we can subtract them, and then what we remain with is the probability for picking the black ball. Okay, total probability is always 1. That's what I'm using here. And now we can continue and simplify this. LCM, we have a 30. Divide by this 6 times this, we have 12 plus 30 by this 5 times that, we have a 5. So I have a 1, which I can write, since the denominator here is 30, I can also write this at 30 out of 30. 1 minus 17 out of 30. 30 take away this gives me a 13 out of 30. And that is the probability for picking a black ball. Question 9. In question 9, it says in the diagram below, triangle this is mapped onto this triangle by an enlargement, right? And we have, the diagram is here. We have this triangle here, PQR. being mapped onto this, and this is its image. Okay, and we are supposed to use the diagram to find the coordinates of the center of enlargement. Now, how do we get the coordinates? To obtain the coordinates of the center of enlargement, we connect corresponding object and image points. I hope you can see this line. This line was not given. I have just drawn it here. So you use a ruler and you connect corresponding images, corresponding points. And by corresponding points, if I look at Q here, I'm supposed to connect it to Q prime. When I look at R, I'm supposed to connect it to R prime. When I look at P, I'm supposed to connect it to P prime. 2 points are enough, but you can also use all of them. Now, I want to connect this other second point of mine. Since the line is already there, I'll just trace through it. Please use a ruler so that you have a nice straight line. I'm unable to use it now here. And this point here is the center of enlargement. So I'll simply now, when those two meet, I simply write down my answer, that my center of enlargement, this point here, the coordinates here, is supposed to be, when I look at the origin, I do not go to the right or to the left, so that is a 0. Then I need to move 3 steps up, so it is 0, 3. Okay, then what about the enlargement scale factor? Now, by enlargement scale factor, we simply mean the linear scale factor, a number so that when you multiply it by the size of this object, it gives us this image. Okay, so it's like image size divided by object size. Okay, and this can be done in a number of ways. For example, I can make use of Q prime R prime and I divide it by QR, okay, corresponding sides. Or I can use P prime R prime and I divide that by PR. I can also use P prime Q prime and I divide it by P Q prime, okay, sorry, P and Q. Or I can as well measure the distances from the center of enlargement. For example, I can measure this distance and I divide it by this distance, okay? Or I can measure this distance and I divide it by this distance. But from this given diagram, when I look at this image, I can easily get the length R prime Q prime. By simply even counting the boxes, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can use that. So that means I'm going to write down that my enlargement scale factor is equal to Q prime R prime, and I'm supposed to divide it by a corresponding side on the other side, which is QR. So from the diagram, I've counted that QR is 6 units, okay? Whereas when I look at QR, I can also count 1, 2, 3 out of a 3, and so this gives me a 2. Okay, it gives me a 2. Is that our final answer? No, one more thing to go. When you look at these two, you will see that this is our center of enlargement. The object is on this side and the image is on the other side. And so whenever we are carrying out an enlargement and we find out that the two are on opposite sides of the center of enlargement, all right, then to show that, we attach a negative sign to this answer, okay? So our enlargement scale factor is going to be -2. And the negative in that case simply means that the object and the image are on opposite sides, okay, of the center of enlargement. Okay, fine. Okay, let's talk about our last question of the day. It says a building A is 40 meters high. Okay, so we have 40 meters here. I have tried to sketch. This is 40 meters. The angle of depression of the top of B from the top of A is 26 degrees. Now, when you read this statement here, where they say the angle of depression of the top, okay, this confirms that building B is shorter than A, because when you are at A, you need to look down, okay, depression. You need to lower your eyes down so that you are able to see the top of B. And that given angle is 26 degrees. So how do we indicate that on the diagram? This being our building A, we can now connect the top of A to B. Then when we draw here a horizontal line, you see this horizontal line here, please when you're sketching you can even make it look better so that it is horizontal. Then the angle of depression is measured from this horizontal downwards, just like this, because it means you are now focusing on something that is below you. So this is where we have 26 degrees. Okay. Now, if the two buildings are 10 meters apart, so that means the distance in between these two is supposed to be 10 meters. Find the height of building B. We are interested in finding the height of this building, and then we have instructions on how to give our final answer to two decimal places. Okay, so when we look at this, having sketched this, you can clearly see that this is a right-angled triangle. Okay, and when you look at this and this angle, you notice that these two are equal. Okay, alternating angle. If you remember that letter Z there, alternating angle. So this angle is equal to this. Good. We want this, but we only know the height of building A. So from this triangle here, do you see this triangle here, right angle triangle? If I can get this height here, let me call it height H. The moment I know this height from here up to here, then I can know the height of building B. So from this given angle and this, remember when we are given this angle here, then this side here is the opposite. The side there is the opposite, and the side here in the neighborhood of this given angle is the adjacent. And I want to apply this. Okay, so so which one are we going to apply? We're interested in the opposite. We have the adjacent, so that means we are going to use the tan. So our right tan of 26 degrees should equal to the opposite side, which is H, out of the adjacent side, which is 10 meters. And then from this, from our calculators, we can just put that H is equal to, this is H is equal to 10 times tan of 26. Please, you just put this in the calculator at once, or you can even put a multiplication sign, no problem. And from your calculator, you should be able to get this 4.8773. You notice that I'm giving my answer to 4 decimal places, but as in the question they told me give your final answer to this. Okay, to be safe you need to use more here so that your final answer will be accurate. Now, okay, now that we know H, then that means that now the height, we can get the height of building B. How? By doing 40, take away this upper height here, which is 4.8773. And when we subtract, we have 35.1227. Okay, is that our final answer? No, remember we are supposed to give our final answer to 2 decimal places. So I have 335 point, I say I have 1, 2, the next number is a 2, so I just round it down. So that means I have 1, 2 meters. And that is now our final answer. I hope you have learned something from this. More is still to come. Thank you.